Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Friday, August the 22nd. And welcome to our commentary. Well, the big story this morning, we wake up to the story of the FBI and John Bolton's home. Look, I don't really know, to be honest with you, what's behind it. Uh, they did have to go to a judge and get a warrant. So obviously, something was presented to a judge that the judge said, okay, you can go into his house for whatever. So I don't have any specifics. Nobody really does, I suppose. A few people do. The FBI director, I assume the attorney general as well. And we will find out. We will find out probably over the next few days, maybe today, maybe over the weekend, maybe Monday. I don't know. I think it's important for the American people to hear from the FBI and the attorney general as to what exactly is going on here. These are very serious decisions and very serious actions. And sometimes they have to be made. I'm not saying that it shouldn't be made. But when you take a step like this, you better have some pretty good information. And for the time being, I'm just going to sit back and wait for information. And I assume we'll have it soon. Now, I do want to fight back a little bit at all of these Democrats who are talking about vengeance. And this is Trump, using the FBI or the government, the weaponization of justice, as they say. And I fight back a little bit because, my goodness, after what they did to Trump all these years, all these investigations and all these stupid things that they did, come on. I think Democrats need to cool off a little bit, okay, and at least give the Trump administration an opportunity to explain what's happening. I don't believe that this is vengeance. I personally, and again, this is just my own speculation. I have no inside information. My speculation is that there's apparently a book that he's writing, or maybe he's already written it. I don't know. That he may have used some sensitive classified information for that book. If that's the case, then the FBI was correct in doing what they did. There may be other things going on. I suspect that we may have, maybe this could be part of a larger investigation, other things going on. So I don't know. I'm going to tell you that I don't know. But I do want these Democrats to tone it down a little bit, because after what they did to President Trump, and we're going to be talking about that situation in New York in a minute, my goodness, they need to tone it down a little bit. They need to tone it down because, you want to talk about weaponizing justice? Okay, well, you should have been tuned in for the last 10 years as to everything that was done to President Trump. So let's wait and see. The director of the FBI will probably have a conference or explain something soon. He should. Okay, if you're going to take an action like this, you better have your ducks in a row and explain it correctly. But we'll wait and see what he has to say. But please, all of these things about Trump and the weaponization, come on. I mean, that doesn't make a lot of sense either after what was done to President Trump. And that, of course, leads me to my first point today, and that is what just happened out of New York. I've got a post about this coming out Saturday morning. Look, the court threw out the $500 million penalty. The case is still in the court, and my guess is they're going to throw that out too. But at least the penalty, which was the big story, was thrown out. And I think that what we saw here was the New York, whatever court that was. I don't think it's called the Supreme Court, but whatever they call it. I think we saw these justices in New York. They looked at this thing and said, this is impossible. You cannot defend this. There's no proportion here between whatever the crime was and this penalty. There's simply no proportion. And not only that, but even one of the judges talked about violating President Trump's, eighth cruel and unusual punishment, which is, of course, the Eighth Amendment to the Constitution. So it's obvious to me that the court, the justices in New York who took a look at this case, said, this is crazy. This is completely out of whack with reality, so they threw it out. The penalty, that is. But I think there's also a larger message, and that's what my post is about tomorrow, and that is the message you're sending here to investors, and that is people who have walked away from New York. One of the things that is happening in New York is when you have all this Banana Republic stuff, not only this case, but the other 34 felonies case that the other side likes to talk about, the convicted felon case, which, by the way, that one's going to be thrown out too. I can predict to you that one is going to be thrown out too. But, when you've got that kind of justice being done against President Trump, a lot of investors and a lot of people with money are going to say they can do it to Trump. They can do it to me. I don't have the money to defend myself like Trump did. And I think the justices are sending out a message, a clear message that, hey, New York is not a banana republic. Come back with your money or don't take it out, because we're not a banana republic. And I really believe that that's the message behind this reversal of the penalty. There is also hopefully a message for the judge, because the only reason that this case was able to go as far as it did is because the judge was corrupt. That judge, Endragon, I think is his name, had to see at a very early stage in this trial, especially after the bank and the insurance company came in and said, they didn't do anything wrong. He paid us every time. We gave him the money. He paid it back with interest. Everything was fine. And the insurance company said, yeah, we valued the property independently, and we came to our own conclusion, which is what insurance companies do. They're not going to take the word of a person for the property. They're going to do their own independent investigation. So anyway, I think the justice there, or the judge, I hope he's going to get the message, and I hope he's reprimanded by the higher courts and maybe the Bar Association, because this man should not do another case in New York City or New York, period, or anywhere. This was a highly irresponsible judge who was clearly out to get Trump. I mean, we know that the attorney general was out to get Trump, but she is a politician, at least. I'm not cutting her slack on it. I'm not saying I understand, but she's a politician. You got to give her some slack here for being partisan. But the judge is not supposed to be a politician. He's supposed to be above that. And he's supposed to look at the facts and say, where's the fraud? Who committed fraud? I don't see it. Nobody saw it. And that's where I think the judge failed tremendously, not just Trump, but he failed the judicial system. So I hope the judge is reprimanded, and reprimanded very strongly, because this was a horrible case for the image of New York. And I remember Kevin O'Leary, the investor who was on TV a year ago, saying, I'm taking money out of New York and I'm telling people to get their money out. And just in the last day or so, Professor Jonathan Turley wrote a very good piece talking about the insanity of this case and this judge who allowed all of this to happen. So very bad. For when this happened, I felt very angry about New York. At least it's been corrected. And that, I hope it's the beginning of a few corrections that are going to be made, including that 34 felonies, which is a disgrace as well. So we'll see. But, at least a good beginning up in New York to clarify or to correct a terrible injustice. I have a post over at the American Thinker today, Friday morning, talking about deploying troops to Ukraine as part of this peacekeeping mission. I think they should do that. I think there should be a peacekeeping mission, or at least some kind of a support mission of soldiers. But it should not be American soldiers. It should be European soldiers. They're the ones who need to come up with a force, 10,000, 15,000, whatever it is. They're the ones who need to do this, not the United States. Now, the United States can provide aerial support. The United States can provide logistics. We do that well. And weapons, if necessary. But this should be a European operation. It should not be NATO, meaning it should be countries individually making these calls. And, in my article, I point out that England, the UK is apparently ready to do something. Germany sounds like they're ready to do something. Other countries are not exactly sure. But this has to be a demonstration of European leadership, because after all, Ukraine is a war in their neighborhood, and they're the ones who have to take the initiative. They shouldn't be expecting the United States to put up all the troops and do all the leadership. That I don't think is what we need right now. They have to do their own troops. They're going to have to get their own forces and put them in there and act to protect Ukraine from Russia. They also need to send a message to Russia that we're ready. We're ready to defend Europe if we have to. Well, let me leave you today with on this day in history, 1989. So that would make it 36 years ago. It was 36 years ago that Nolan Ryan got strikeout number 5,000. Now, look, he's like 1,000 strikeouts ahead of the next guy. So that nobody's going to catch Nolan Ryan. Nobody will ever throw 7 no-hitters like Nolan Ryan did, and nobody's going to strike out 5,000 batters. So I think you can safely say that these records are going to be around for a long time. As long as there's Major League Baseball and as long as they play the game that we do now, I don't think anybody's going to break this record. I mean, this is one of those records that will stay forever. I did not watch the strikeout live on TV, but I heard it on the radio, the old line about I heard it on the radio, and I did. And it was just great. Eric Nadel, who was the Texas Rangers radio announcer, he was the one who made the call. It was Nolan Ryan striking out Ricky Henderson. What an interesting combination there. One Hall of Famer striking out another Hall of Famer for strikeout number 5,000. But it was an amazing achievement. And as I say, he ended up with 5,700, which is remarkable. I mean, he struck out 700 more batters after that. But nevertheless, nobody's going to get to 5,000. So that much I can tell you today. That's going to be safe. That record of 5,000 strikeouts, that's going to be safe. Nolan Ryan's got that one. Again, I think he'll have that record for as long as we play baseball. Thank you for listening. Everybody have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you later. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas.